Okay, guys. Welcome to the fan show. This should be interesting because I've just spent the last 2 hours slagging off Tottenham Hotspur. I feel like almost like I've never slagged them off before, and that's hard. That is a difficult thing to claim ownership over because I've watched Tottenham play some utter dross in my time, but not much covers what I just had to see. And now I'm going to get an opportunity to speak to some other Spurs fans about it. So first up, I'm going to go to Tom. Tom, can you hear me okay? Tom, are you on mute, mate?
Always do that. How are you, Barnaby?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm not good, mate. I'll be honest, I'm not good. But Tom, what can you, I saw you in the green room. You were listening to my post-match review. What can you tell us that I haven't already said myself? What the fuck was that?
Yeah, I mean, mate, I echo everything you said. I mean, it's just, at the end of the day, I'm not surprised. Ever since that Chelsea game, these sort of results have kept happening. We come against a team that, they are a decent side. They are a decent side, but we just look toothless, and there's absolutely nothing. And I just think there's just no excuse to do nothing. We literally did nothing for that whole game. We did nothing. No shots on target.
It was fear, though, wasn't it? It was fear, Tom. They were absolutely shitting themselves. Yeah. They couldn't handle the atmosphere.
But that's always the excuse, isn't it? I mean, there's no character in that team. I think the thing that summed it up was that free kick in the first half. Yeah. Just the basics. They train for those sort of situations, and we can't get that right. Apparently we've been working on attacking set pieces, apparently. Yeah, it's just pathetic. It's just same old excuses. And the manager has to take responsibility for this. Obviously, look, we can still turn it around, but I was saying during the game, I don't see us turning this around. I don't see it. I really don't.
No, I don't see us turning it around because do you agree with me in that it's very clear to me that these teams who come up against us, they just watch like the Palace game, the Ipswich game, all of those games, and just get in their faces, make it difficult for them, and they cannot handle it.
Yeah, I mean, we're so easy to play against. It's unbelievable. Basically any team, even Tamworth, a semi-professional team full of part-timers, no disrespect to them, even they can do a job on us.
Yeah.
And that was with, we had a couple of first teamers in that game. We hardly rotated. So that's why I'm not surprised by this. It's just, this is who we are. And nothing changes. There's no, nothing's changed. This is who we are. It's who we are.
Where does well, relevantly, I'm going to ask you, where does Ange go from here? Realistically, I feel like we're in the end of days for Ange, unless magically something. What it was clear from the first minute of that game that the only way we were going to score a goal is if someone magically put it in the top bin from 30 yards, and the only opportunity we pretty much had to do that, they chose to take a short free kick anyway, or from a set piece. But we don't score from set pieces, so I think. What do you think? Where's Ange going to go from here?
I just think, well, obviously, look, we can still turn it around. But look, even if we get through next week, I don't see us winning this competition. We'll come up against either Frankfurt and Ajax, and I just don't see us winning that.
But they might. I mean, I have to say, just to play devil's advocate, Tom, they might actually try and come at us, which is where we're in our wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But, eventually, even if we get through that, there'll be some team that we play against that will suss us out and, will understand our weaknesses. But look, I think if we lose next week, and just got to go.
I'll tell you now, we're going to lose on penalties next week. The best we can hope for is that we're going to lose on penalties next week. I can guarantee it. I've seen it 100 times. Do you remember Norwich in the FA Cup? Do you remember PSV in the UEFA Cup?
The irony is Troy Parrott missed the pen, didn't he?
Yes, yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I know. I'm just so uninspired by it. There's nothing there. I just watch it and I'm just like, there's I'm not inspired watching this. And apparently it's attacking football. It's just
I just wonder if from the I wonder if I'm just trying to work it out. I wonder if like from minute naught, even before, from flying out there, a lot of the team are like, okay, we've got Christian, we've got Dom Solanke, we've got Van der Ven on the bench. So really what we need to do is just get through this game, find a way to get a 0-0, at worst, stay in it, and then they'll all be back for next week. But the problem is, I'm sorry, one of the biggest problems is how embarrassing that performance was and how many pelters that team and Ange Postecoglou are going to get this week. He is going to get pelters. He has to. It was shocking.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so bad. And I think that was actually the worst game of the season. I honestly think that was the worst game. Actually, no, the Liverpool game was worse, but that's Liverpool. But it's just like, they had 8 days to prepare for that game. They had no shots on target. No shots on target. It's honestly laughable. It is laughable. And it's just.
And it goes from bad to worse because one of the options I'd say would make me feel a bit better about next week would be Solanke, so having a bit more of a direct option. And it looks like the keepers need him out of contention because that looked very sore.
We won't go direct. That's the thing.
But at least he can hold it up. None of us can hold. Nobody else can hold it up in the final third, and that's why.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, I was going to say that's one of the biggest problems. The biggest problem is the central midfield. And this has been happening all season as well. They pussy out of 50-50 challenges. And do you know where we pussy out 50-50 challenges the most? Central midfield, and then in our own box. We're like scared rabbits in those two places. Yeah. And the opposition know it. And so they plow through us.
Yeah. I mean, you highlight that, standing off and, the lack of pressure. And I think Johnson, he's one of the culprits of that. Because remember, like, even though the goal was unlucky, it was him that let the man go free in the box. He was the one that stood off. So, he is one of the culprits of that. And
I don't care.
I know
Do you know
what
what?
you mean. It's just,
I don't care who stood off. What I care about is the fact that in every single game, I do a watch along and I say 6 to 10 times, we don't mark our back post. And it doesn't matter whether it's from a corner or from open play. It's like Ange doesn't care about the back post. Well, they keep fucking scoring from the back post, Ange. So you're making yourself look like a twat.
Those are the tactics. That's the thing is, that's been the source of our issues for so long. That I'd say that's about 50% of our defensive issues are due to not marking the back post, and that's not down to the personnel. That's not down to injuries. That's down to the manager. And I'm just going to that's when he's got to hold his hands up.
I'm just going to bring up a comment here, Tom. Tom Lowry says, entitled tossers. If we don't win, it's the end of the world. It's 1-0 FFS. Judge it next week. Support the fucking team. Mate, were you not watching the same game? Do you not support Spurs? Do you not know what it's like when you watch your team that you've invested your life in playing like utter dross so that you're going to be embarrassed by everybody? Yes, we're still in the tie, but only because we're lucky to just be in the tie, not because we deserve to be in the tie. And in the same way that when Spurs win 4-0 at the Etihad Stadium, I will be absolutely behind the manager and say how brilliant he was. I have every right as a Spurs fan of over 35 years to say when we were utter shit, and we were.
Yeah, and you have more of a right to say that than me because you've been supporting the club longer than me, and it's just I mean, look, I respect that comment. I think some people do get very emotional, but I think just because there's a lack of, there's such a lack of inspiration in that team, and it's just embarrassing. No shots on target. That's the thing for me. It's like I can stomach losing. I can stomach, not being the better team. And I respect teams like Alkmaar, and I knew it was going to be a difficult game. But just to not be able to compete is it's unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable.
Yeah,
and it's our last hope as well, winning this competition. Sorry,
I think I think you've mentioned it. It's like the whole vibe of Ange Ball is supposed to be like, okay, well, if we're going to lose, we're going to lose in a brave, attacking way. And he clearly, I'm sorry, but he is in charge of the club, so he has to take responsibility. He clearly hasn't been able to coach that bravery into them, because whenever we go into games exactly like this, we fall into our sideways and backwards. It might as well be Conte Ball, because at least with Conte Ball, it was defensively a little bit sturdier.
Yeah, and it was more direct than Conte as well. And yeah, it's just that's the main thing as well. Just the amount of times we're just passing it sideways, backwards, sideways. There's no risk taking really. I mean, I'm not saying no one takes risks in that team, but it's just it's so safe, isn't it? We're always there's no directness or anything. And I think I look at obviously I don't want to compare Ange to Pep or anything, but when Man City was struggling, he changed the tactics and they were a bit more direct in some of the games I was watching. And I just think we've got to try and change it up. We've got to get players like Spence not making stupid runs and leaving us exposed. We've got to get players like Spence putting balls forward and trying to, get the balls into attacking areas. If I was the manager, at least.
I've just put a comment up there from Phil C saying, I don't mind losing. It's the way you lose that matters. And I think that sums it up for me.
Of course. Yeah.
It's
not we support the team. Yeah.
Oh, so Bournemouth at the weekend then.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't care
because AZ don't have a match now between now and the next one. So, what do you imagine Ange will do team-wise for that Bournemouth game?
I mean, he's got to rotate, isn't he? He's got to rotate the team against Bournemouth. I don't see us winning that. To be honest, I don't see us beating Bournemouth. Bournemouth, they are a better team than us. Bournemouth are a better team than us, and that's a fact. So yeah, if I was Ange, I'd rotate. I would definitely give Solanke a rest in hope that even if he's fit for that Bournemouth game, I'd definitely rest him and just make sure he's all right for next week. And yeah, hopefully we can turn it around next week. I don't have much hope, but obviously we all have that. As fans, we've got to just get behind the team next week, and hopefully we turn it around. We can turn it around. We've got the players to do it. But whether we have whether we turn up is another question.
All right, Tom, thanks so much for being a part of the show today, and hopefully speak to you after a better result at the weekend or next week. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Yeah, take care, mate. Hopefully we get a good result.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye. Okay, next up, I'm going to Ireland and Noel. How are you, Noel?
Very poor, Barnaby. That was dreadful. I really don't know what to say. It was inept, to say the least. I can't believe the bad passing, giving the ball away. To me, it looked like as if it was a dead rubber game. That there wasn't much on it. I mean, this is, to get into the last 8 of the Europa League. We didn't show enough urgency, and that was a disappointing thing for me. And the amount of stray balls, and we were lucky. AZ could have had a couple. We're still in the tie, and it's how they react next week. But one of the poorest performances I've seen from Spurs for a long time, and there's been some fairly poor ones this year. Yeah. So not happy at all, and some of the substitutions as well. Surprised, I still wouldn't have taken Son off. I didn't see Johnson doing anything at all. When you looked at, the camera went over to the sideline, and Son and Maddison were sitting there together. But they didn't have great games, but there are two guys who could get you a goal. Yeah. Like Udderberg came on and he was running into blind alleys. Yeah. Very disappointed with him. Disappointed with the whole performance. Barnaby, really don't know what to say.
No, I'm going to ask you, sorry to interrupt, I'm going to ask you a quite difficult question.
Yeah.
But it's a simple one. Why did they perform so badly?
I don't know, actually. I really don't. I didn't see any leadership in the team. The only leadership I saw in the team was from Vicario when Bergvall, unfortunately, scored the own goal. I've never seen anybody really rolling their sleeves up and saying, "Come on, we can do this. We can get a goal." It was just flat. The performance was completely flat. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm lost for words for once, Barnaby. I don't know what to say.
There's been a bit of kind of back and forth in the comments here. I can see it as we're broadcasting. Yeah. And people getting annoyed at me for being annoyed, and then annoyed at other people for being not annoyed enough and whatever. Yeah. You're an older Spurs fan than me. I've been a Spurs fan for a long time, and people in the comments as well. It's all subjective. Everyone is allowed their viewpoint, but how do you actually feel about when a game is that the performance is that bad and it's in such an important game and kind of the last thing that we're kind of hanging our hopes on, especially when it's like I don't know about you, but I want this manager to succeed. I want it to work out for him.
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
think, am I not right? And I don't know how you feel, but I feel like you're absolutely allowed to be instinctively as angry as you would be, ecstatic if we won 4-0.
Just immediately when the final whistle went, I rang one of my best friends actually, and the words he was F F F F. I mean, it was just absolutely unbelievable. He was furious, like myself. Like I've been supporting Spurs since 1967.
There you go.
Seen some great days, some glory days, and Glenn Hoddle was the commentator. And Glenn Hoddle was, I was one of a signed shirt of his actually in my house, and it was crying out for somebody like him. There was so much lack of creativity. I was really sitting there exasperated, thinking, "Come on, you're still in this tie." But thankfully, they didn't give away the second goal. That's I think the only blessing from tonight is that they didn't concede the second goal. Because if they conceded the second, I don't think they'd turn it around next week.
Yeah, agreed.
Can't they turn it around next week? They bloody well have to. This is a pivotal season, part of our season. Go out of the cup next week, and it's all downhill. We just have to play out the season and hope we can, finish as high up as possible. So the most important week, as I can see it, and it started in an abysmal fashion. And you've every right to, feel like that as a Spurs supporter. We want to see some passion. I didn't see any passion out there tonight. I can really, I was hoping you were going to ask me who do I think played well. I think actually Bergvall showed something.
Yeah, in the second half especially.
Yeah, especially. He showed a lot of willingness, and he broke up ball and, and tried to take him on. He was very unfortunate with the goal. He's only young. He'll learn from these things. It happens to the best of people. Yeah. But it's the reaction afterwards wasn't there. And I think only for Vicario and some bad finish. And Troy Parrott really could have finished the tie. Yeah. We were lucky, we tried to play him offside. Sorry, he was plainly onside.
1-on-1. Yeah.
And 1-on-1, and Vicario showed his experience. So we're still in it. But Sunday, big game against Bournemouth. We need the points as well. I don't know what will happen. Very disappointed to see Solanke going off. Yeah. Injured, obviously in a lot of pain. To me, it looked as if it's a hip injury, and that wouldn't be simple. So I think we're not going to have him back out for a while, which we were banking on. Yeah. He brings us, I think he brings other players into the game, and would have been a big player to play next week. Yeah. So, fairly abysmal end to the evening. But look at we're Spurs supporters. I think the commentator says this is the 18th time we've lost this season. That's a shocking record. Yeah. That is absolutely horrendous. Yeah. But
awful.
I still hope that, and I think we will turn it around. We just have to. As simple as that. Our season depends on it.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, Noel, thanks so much for being a part of the show, and let's speak after the Bournemouth game on Sunday. Thanks a lot.
Okay,
mate.
Thanks, Barnaby. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Sorry, just running out a bit of time. Next up, I'm going to talk to Tim. And Tim, before I let you come in, I'm going to ask you a question because I just saw something in the comments which I was already going to ask a question about, and I'm absolutely rattled by this comment, which is from Caretaker, who in the interview, I assume he means, Ange has said that it was a tricky pitch. Now, the question I was going to ask you, starting this already, was how was it tonight that Tottenham Hotspur made that pitch look like it was Hackney Marshes, whereas AZ Alkmaar were popping it about 1 and 2 touch through the midfield, and yet we're all on, between 75 and 100 grand or 150 grand a week, and none of them are.
Yeah, I just listened to that interview, and he did unfortunately say we had trouble adjusting to the pitch or something like that. He also said that there was nowhere near enough pressing. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. Really? Have you got to tell him that? Yeah, the control seemed awful. Yeah. I don't care what the pitch was like. It was probably a bit bumpy, but it wasn't exactly,
But Alkmaar controlled it fine. They were fine.
Exactly. I suppose if I'm playing devil's advocate, we say, well, they're kind of used to it, but it's not an excuse. Right. That we weren't holding the ball. There were passes that just, a pass going astray isn't a pricky, a crap pitch. It just means you've passed it wrong. Tell just couldn't hold a ball up. No one could go past a player. Like, no. Odeberg tried, and so did Brennan, but neither of them could get past a player, full stop. And that wasn't that. I mean, I can't actually work out, bearing in mind what we've asked for is more players back and time to rest. You got both those things and had one of the worst performances for some time, since the last time we had a crap performance in Europe. So I'm not entirely sure what that was. We just, like, Odeberg would get to, not get past someone, but get down the line and then just pass it straight back. There was nothing. And the one thing Brennan's good at is finishing a ball. He can't go past anyone or dribble or be creative, but he can certainly finish. But he had nothing. It's got to say something when our only shot on target was a miss-hit cross by Odeberg, and obviously someone's mentioned a free kick. Yeah, Ange was just going on about the lack of effort, and I noticed during the game they could just so easily triangle passes around us, bang, 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 and they're gone, and like no one's near anyone, and we could whinge on about Ange, which I could do all night. But the players weren't closing down. They didn't seem to be right. This is the cup we can win. Let's go and do this. Just, there was no leadership. There was some whinging going on the pitch by Maddison and others going, oh, what's going on? Yeah. But there didn't seem anyone to go, right, come on, let's press. And it just seemed like all over the place. Like they hadn't trained for 10 days or whatever it is.
I think they trained for 8 days doing that free kick routine.
Yeah, that went so well.
I just think there's just a lack of experience almost, and almost like Son and Maddison, I guess, who do have experience, aren't, and maybe Danso to a degree. They're not those players who are going to drag a team by the scruff of the neck. And I know I'm talking in cliches, but sometimes you could see it in the Alkmaar players. They just wanted it. They just were into it.
Yep.
Get in their faces or whatever. Spurs have an inability or a refusal to ever match the fight in these kind of games.
And that's the bit that bothers me. And the one thing that really bothers me, the only good thing that came out of this was that we're only 1-0 down when we could have been a lot more down. We should have been 2, apart, Vic making a couple of great saves, we should have been at least 2-0 down.
But Tim, do you have any confidence at all that we won't be 2-0 down after about 5 minutes of the second leg?
That's my concern, because I know Alkmaar are really, really tight defensively. Yeah. So, one break and we're 2-0 down, then we're in real trouble. Not that we're not in trouble now, because we can't create anything, So my worry is that they'll just sit back and go on the break, because that's what they're very good at. That's what they're trained to do. And they're handy with a ball, and they can certainly, at least take a shot on target, for God's sake. So my real worry is something will happen early on next week, whenever the next one is. And we will panic. So I'm not feeling exactly content about that. And I don't know where the creativity is coming from. I really don't. I mean, I will say that Pedro at least came on and started crossing a ball or two, which got them in trouble, because Brendan just doesn't seem able to do it. Odeberg, I can't even remember a cross that he did, which seems extraordinary, right?
I think straight away from the first 10 minutes of the second half, where it was clear that Odeberg was trying to come narrow every time and the defender knew he was going to do it, I would have switched him over to the right-hand side and said, all right, beat your defender on the outside and get a cross in.
I suppose what I was thinking, okay, we've got a crappy first half. They'll go in at half-time, change things up, mix things up, try and get AZ off balance and try something new. Nothing changed. Even when they brought new players on, nothing really changed, apart from Pedro doing something, and Jed was possibly the only half-decent player on the pitch. At least he was, even though he got caught a couple of times, at least he was trying to drive through and do stuff. We had no one to drive through. No. We had no one with any pace, and we had no one to close down, which was leaving our defence just wide open, to be honest with you.
Tim, I'm just going to read what Postecoglou said in his press conference. He said, it wasn't great from us tonight. Pretty much all facets of the game. We didn't really get to grips with any part of the game. We struggled to gain any momentum with the ball. We weren't as aggressive as we needed to be without the ball. It was a tricky surface, but having said that, we kind of knew that from yesterday, and we just didn't tackle the challenges we had out there in a real positive way. That allowed AZ to get into a rhythm, which when you're playing away from home, it is difficult to stem the tide. So it's, he's just paying lip service to it, really. I guess he has to. He's protecting his players. He's protecting himself.
Here's a question for you, Barnaby. Do you think, I've never really got the impression that the players buying into it, and I think it seems less and less. Do you get the impression that the players are just playing, not bought into the system or the way of playing, or even Ange himself? Because I'm starting to get that impression, particularly when Sonny and Mads were chatting on the bench. It was like, oh, they're not happy.
Yeah. The first time I suggested that as an issue was that Everton game where we were 3-0 down at halftime. They were just jogging about, and I've seen it a few times. They just jog about sometimes, and I've said it. It reminds me of when you watch Manchester United and Roy Keane is in the pundits box, and he'll go through clips of them, and he'll go, they just jog about, they don't press. And tonight they didn't press, and I think Ange may have mentioned that, but it's like, well, it's your job to make them press. And what's weird about it is, look, I do understand, and stats back up that being away from home makes it harder, and the home team do have, I don't know, 5-10% more momentum and desire because they've got the fans behind them, and the stats back that up from during the COVID times when the teams that won away was so much. There were so many more teams winning away during the COVID no fans period. But the flip of that is there's no excuse for, in a Europa League last 16 tie, for that Tottenham team not to look at how high and how hard the AZ Alkmaar team were pressing and not just be like, why don't we just do the same? Just do the same and press them back to their keeper. But we didn't do that. And as a result, they kind of got their corner and got their goal. And then after that, they just went long every time and caused havoc quite a lot. It was either going long, kind of pinpointing Archie Gray, who I think did a pretty good job under the circumstances, and then also just getting in down the left time and time again. And it's like, I'm at a total loss as to how we can watch a team concede chance after chance after chance in every game down the left-hand side and him not try and do anything about it tactically.
It just feels like a very long time since I've thought, oh, they're purring. They're looking really good. Just feels like a very long time since I thought that. And worry is, I think they've lost it. They've lost whatever they did have is just so far away now. I'm not sure it's reversible.
Maybe. Alistair Gold asked Postecoglou why, for such a big game, the Spurs players just didn't really seem that up for it. He said, look, it's a combination of things, but we'll analyze it and have a look at the areas we struggled with. But it's fair to say, it was nowhere near the level it needed to be. So, again, like paying lip service. I mean, look, let's go for the positives and say, we're still in the game. If we find a way through it next week, I'm positive that we'll somehow only do it on penalties if we do it at all. I'm not confident of that. And then I think all we can hope for, and it's a weird hope, but actually it's something I've been saying all season, we do better against the teams who come at us.
Yeah.
So we probably need it to be Eintracht, who I'd say are probably just a bit better than Ajax because they've won, a trophy in Europe recently, and then Lazio, and then hope that it's probably not Manchester United in the final.
We have never been good against any sort of low block ever, and just never ever worked that out, which is a real problem because a lot of people will play that. I'm with you. If we do manage to scrape through this and we're playing through half decent people, then I think we stand a chance. Because
then there's space in behind for Brennan Johnson and Sonny. Do you know what I mean? And
exactly.
To do what
those hard crosses across the box, and there's room to move into. They were never giving us that. And it felt like the plan was just to hope to come out 0-0. I think that was it. They were hoping just to grind out a 0-0, and maybe they could do 1-0's fine, and we'll be back. But I worry.
What do you foresee happening now for this Bournemouth game? I think Ange is in a difficult position, knowing that AZ have a break.
I think he'll give Romero and Van der Ven a run for half a game, and then change it up to try and show something different. Because I think we do miss those two, and particularly Van der Ven, who can step up and do things and create space, which is not what we had tonight. I think he'll mix in and give people minutes and do it. The league's done, so you might as well experiment. And those people, I don't want Romero and Van der Ven coming in like without having to have a match. So I reckon he'll play him at least 60 minutes at the weekend. And I'm not very hopeful about it, but we're Spurs fans. Anything can happen. Literally anything can happen.
And I have to ask this because I've seen it a little bit on Twitter. Matthias Tell, we're not making chances for him. He's clearly not ready to be a number 9 back to goal player to hold it up in midfield. They knew to just be physical with him, come through the back of him. At this point, if Solanke isn't fit, would there be any temptation for you in the next Europa League game to play Scarlett ahead of Tell?
I think I would, because the problem is with Tell is he's quite lightweight. I thought actually a couple of times when he kind of slipped away, I thought, he's going to beat the man down the outside and do that rather than back to goal, which he can't do, and he couldn't even do that. No. So I was thinking, well, maybe that will be a part of his game, but it's not. I just think he's just not ready for the Premier League right now. He's not playing in a confident team. If he was playing in a confident team, well, maybe, but I don't think he is. I think I prefer a bit more of a heavyweight like Dane Scarlett and to give him a go, because he's got everything going to actually prove himself, whereas I'm not sure Tell has. Yeah.
Okay, mate. Well, listen, Tim, thanks so much for appearing on the show. Really appreciate it. And speak to you.
Come on, you Spurs. We'll be fine.
Next one.
That's what we're going to say. We'll be fine.
Okay, mate. See you later. Bye-bye. Okay, next I'm going to John. John, thanks for being patient, mate. How are you feeling? How are you feeling after that?
Just, I don't know what it is. Mentality side of things. I hear the excuses that have come out today about the pitch and everything else like that. I see the stats come up first half, or halfway through the second half. Sorry, we've done 408 passes. No, we hadn't. Right? If you're watching that, our basics and how we play, it's just not there. Everything's like off the cuff, like we're winging it. Nothing really up front. Yeah. But are you surprised about today? Really? Are you surprised about that? Because away in Europe anyway, we haven't got a good record anyway. The bigger the game, we don't fancy it. And I just think, the only saving grace is only 1-0.
I'm going to answer your question, even though I think it was kind of probably half rhetorical. But I was saying in my videos this week that I thought it would be 1-1 tonight. So I guess what I'd say is, am I surprised that we conceded to a set piece from a free header at the back post? No. Am I surprised that we didn't? I think we had one shot on goal and we didn't cause them any problems at all. Maybe I am a bit surprised about that. And that's where I think, and like I'll keep saying it, I'd love it to work out for Ange. I like him as a bloke. I think the players in the most part are still playing for him, which is rare considering we're in like 15th in the league or wherever we are. But it's just his inability to change things. And I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. When he sees that first half and even the first 15 minutes, we're not getting through the middle of them. They're packing it out. He has to try and do something different. And I don't care whether that is get Dane Scarlett on the pitch or Solanke on the pitch at halftime and say, we're going to just put crosses in from deep and we're going to cause hassle and try and win second balls on the edge of the box and have shots from the edge of the box, because you don't know whether some of those shots may then deflect in off someone. But if it's that kind of game and the pitch is bobbly and you can't play that type of play, then you have to do something different. And I hate saying it because I sound like fucking Jamie Carragher or Jamie Redknapp or someone. But it's like, I don't care at that point if you're like, fine, we're going to put deep crosses in. But he doesn't. And that's why you spend 95 minutes watching that utter dross. And I find myself being wound up about it, because you're like, no other team that I would watch in the Premier League wouldn't try and change it.
No. Why is it we so if teams sit off, I get the logic behind if you sit off, you try and play out from the back because you try and entice them on.
Sure.
But they're so disciplined, they're not going to come on to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So change it up then. Right? They're playing condensed. Go over, hit it over the back line. Push them right up, push them right back. Like you say, change it up. But I don't think Ange has much support from the bench. I don't rate this backroom team that he's got there either. I thought we were it was a shame that we lost Chris Davis to Birmingham in the summer.
He's doing good.
I know he was there at the back end of last season as well as the start, but I thought he would more challenge Ange a little bit more in the decisions. I think that Nick Montgomery and Ryan Mason, not for me. And I wonder if Ange is a yes man to the man upstairs anyway. So from that perspective, but from a player perspective as well, and I don't like this from the club either. We've got, so Bentancur, for example, he was banned, wasn't he, for racially abusing Son? Right, he was, wasn't he? Got done by the FA for that, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Whether he was right or wrong. So, and he's been in and out for us, but we're going to offer him a new contract though.
Mm.
We've also got who's the other one with the
Christina.
Romero. doesn't play, doesn't really want to play for us. Okay, it gives you that impression anyway. I don't know because I don't know him personally. But it gives you that impression. We're going to make him the highest paid player at the club. But then you've got Kulusevski, who has played 11 games back to back, and he's just knackered. He's done his foot. I get it. Knackered, nothing. And it's a mentality thing. Look how pampered they are. Look where they stay in the training ground. Look at it all. It's the whole thing. But we've been supporting Tottenham for so long that you knew tonight was coming.
Yeah.
Right. And if we get through, we'll lose the away leg the next round. Tell you that now. It's a mentality thing, and it always has been. It's weak. It's soft. And whenever it was challenged by previous regimes, they didn't last long.
One thing I would say is I think Pochettino managed to get that mentality into the club from top to bottom. He was the one who was able to change it. But then we didn't support him, and we didn't keep with him. I'm just going to talk about, because you mentioned Kulusevski. If you remember when we went to Rangers and we were fucking dog shit in that game at Ibrox as well, Kulusevski managed to pop up with an equaliser, didn't he? Kind of out of nothing. Yeah. And that's where we really missed him tonight as well, because he's the only player who especially in a game where Maddison was not being creative, where we missed Kulusevski being able to potentially pop up with something.
Tell me what's up with Maddison and that midfield dynamic. He's never got that right, has he? Ever since he's been there, he's never got that midfield dynamic correct, has he?
I think Maddison needs to be as an ego player, the first name on the team sheet. And I think with Madders, I think it's something like he's completed 90 minutes this season, and I don't think Madders is the kind of player, whether he's in the red zone or whatever. I don't think he's the type of player who wants to be taken off the pitch. I think he's the type of player who always thinks he can probably score goals up until the last kick of the game. And so many times, and this is something I find bizarre with Ange, he takes Madders off when we need a goal. And it's like, well, how many creative players do we have on the park?
Yeah.
One thing I will say, sorry to interrupt, but I will say, look, Madders gets injured too much. And when he gets injured, he struggles to come back quickly. But too many times he's not on the park when we need a goal. And he's one of the few players who's creative.
I think I just spell back to it. I remember the time we had George Graham, and no one was a fan of having George Graham there. I get that. When George Graham was there, and we had injuries before, I remember this. He went to he was in the medical department, and he stripped it bare to just having a bench, no TVs, no radios, a horrible place to be. And I just wonder if it's quite convenient if I've got I miss this one. I'll give this way. I've got a bit of a twinge. I missed this one. I'm talking about the whole season, because we've had players that have stood up to it, right? Porro, I'm not his biggest fan, but Porro, Archie Gray, Bergvall, Kulusevski, absolutely played through the whole thing. But others, Romero, I question it sometimes, and I wonder if the manager's strong enough in there. That side of it's strong enough. On the training pitch, I don't think he is strong enough, is he? I mean, he's had 8 days. And you've seen nothing out there today. You've seen no patterns of play. You've seen no change in how we're going to play, and you just winged it. And you've just winged it, and you've just and the changes you make. Odebear coming on.
He was poor. Listen, John, thanks so much for all your opinions, mate. I really appreciate you being part of the show. Let's talk again after hopefully a better result of the weekend.
Take care, mate.
Top man. Cheers. Bye-bye. And finally, I'm going all the way to the Czech Republic. And Steve, thank you so much for being so patient. Really appreciate it, mate.
No problem.
Got about 10 minutes, so we can go into it pretty deeply.
Okay. I think we've gone into it pretty deeply already, but go on.
Yeah, but listen, everybody has a slightly different angle on it. Where do you come from with what you saw tonight?
I slightly disagree with your comment about we were pussyfooting around in the challenges in midfield, because I thought Bergwell was getting stuck in.
True.
Benton Kerr most of the time. Okay, Danso was playing at the back, but he was getting stuck in. But I kind of know what you mean. I think they're not luxury players, but your Johnsons, your Maddisons, and one or two others they weren't up for it, which is what you said. Yeah. I'll agree on that. They were up for it. Alkmaar, and we weren't up for it.
How can it be? How can it be, Steve, that we go into the biggest game of our season, last 16 game, and other than other than what previous people have said about mentality and what I've said about just an inability to deal with the situation, inability to deal with the atmosphere. And then, you know, how can we possibly look ahead to next week and think, oh, well, they'll be able to deal with the stress of being 1-0 down in front of 60,000 people. And I have to say, I don't foresee, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't foresee that game starting next week with 60,000 screaming Spurs fans being like, we're going to get behind you. I think it'll be like, we need you to show us what you can do. And I think it'll be a struggle.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's going to be a very, very nervous atmosphere because of the situation we're in. It's the last chance saloon, if you like. And we're already losing 1-0. And they will, I totally agree with you, they'll come out, Alkmaar playing the same low block. Yeah. It's so frustrating. I mean, I was behind Ange all season. But when you look at that, it's like you say, why don't they change the tactic? Why do they keep playing this same ball and, you know, playing back across the midfield and back and round and nothing's happening? I was saying after 20 minutes to a friend of mine on, texting him, surely he can see, like you said, after 15, 20 minutes, how it was going to end up.
Yeah. At
least the first half. Why doesn't he make some substitutions a little bit earlier? So that was really disappointing. I mean, you know, it was actually 18 and a half minutes of the 90 minutes to go before he brought on Solanke. You know, it's not even
he's afraid of him getting injured, ironically.
Well, yeah. So to me, like, if you've got them on the bench, okay, if we were leading and he wants to bring them on to give them a 10 or 15 minute cameo, for what that's worth, I suppose it's worth something. I mean, why were all those players on the bench then? If they're not ready, they're just, you know.
I think maybe
he's got no intention of playing them.
Yeah, I think realistically, maybe, like you said, probably to give them 10 minutes if we're winning, but also to take them out there to train last night, probably more than anything else.
Yeah. So massively disappointed. To go on to the captaincy, I'm a big fan of Sonny, but unfortunately, some people you can't say a bad word against him. And the only bad word I got, I said he's not suitable to be a captain. Mm-hmm. On one hand, everyone says, yeah, he's great. He can be the captain. He speaks up in the changing rooms. Only we don't know because we don't see it, or fans like me who live away from England don't actually go to the game.
Yep.
But on the other hand, they always say he's a very nice guy. I played at a very low level of football, but every captain I ever played under was not a nice guy, especially not out on the field.
Well, can I give you, sorry to interrupt, but can I give you an example? The AZ Alkmaar captain elbowed Bergvall in the ribs and put him down off the side of the pitch. And that's like, I'm the captain. I'm going to show my teammates what I'm willing to do. I'm going to be sneaky about it. I'm going to be sly about it. And it was stuff like that added to the reasons why Spurs were unwilling to match the fight.
Yeah, there's no drive. But it's been going on all season. And last season, there's nobody there. It should be someone at the back or someone in the midfield or one or two of the players to G them up, you know, and get them going. It's so disappointing. The worst thing is I've actually managed to get, through a friend of mine, a ticket for the game next week. So I'm flying over. So
well, hopefully you'll be a good luck charm, mate. Where do you think Ange goes from here? Where do you think he lies on the, you know, in the reality of the security of his position?
If we fail to get through next week.
Well, right now, even.
Well, right.
I mean,
now,
I'm not suggesting he's going to get sacked in the next week, but he's on the precipice, isn't he?
Yeah, he is definitely. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if he doesn't, we don't go a little bit further in this tournament and improve to at least around about 10th in the league, I think he's gone. I'm really disappointed in him because, like you said as well, I like him as a person. I like the way he deals with the press. Not the press, the press who talk to him. He handles them very well. But where is this man management he talks about? Although it's worked for him in the past, it's a conundrum. You know, and as you said, how come the players are not performing if it's the last chance saloon? You know, they folded in the League Cup, they folded in the FA Cup, absolute dross. And this is the last chance, and they're just, like someone said, it's like a training game. It was really poor, very, very disappointed. So disjointed play. They, you know, despite all this training they finally got under their belts, they didn't seem to know where each other were. They weren't really fighting for each other. Yeah. A lot of losing possession. You know, poor touches.
So much. I have to say, I actually think this might be the thing that brings Yves Bissouma back from the brink, because I think Ange will have to look at that and be like, oh, well, we need someone who's actually going to take the ball on the half turn and try and play some line breaking passes.
Possibly. He has sort of let us down a few times, but then again, a lot of the players have let us down this season with getting dispossessed too close to their own box.
Yeah. What do you predict? What do you predict will happen against Bournemouth at the weekend now?
That's a good one. I think we'll lose that one as well. I think we'll lose that probably 2-1, 3-1. We'll lose anyway, whatever. I wonder if there's.
I have to say, I wonder if there's some element where Ange will say to them, I'm going to put out my first team. I'm not going to care about injuries, because you've got to play yourself into some kind of confidence to go into the second leg.
That's right. Into Thursday.
Because also Ange will look at it. Ange will be like, oh, I might be sacked on a week on Friday. I might be sacked. He might be sacked a week tomorrow. So he might as well play his first team on Sunday and say to them, I'm going to make you play both games, fitness provided. And you've got to, he won't say it directly to them, but it'll be like, you've got to save my job for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he will. I think he will play a strong team, but he'll probably rotate the pair of them, Van der Ven and Romero. He's not going to put them both on at the same time, I wouldn't imagine.
No. All right. Well, listen, Steve, anyway. It's been good to talk to you. Hopefully, let's talk after the Bournemouth game, mate.
After the Bournemouth game, definitely.
Top man. Thanks a lot.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Bye-bye. Oh, cut you off a bit early there, Steve. And guys, if you'd like to appear on a future episode, email tottenhamfanchris@gmail.com. That's tottenhamfanchris@gmail.com. It's important that we give everyone a voice, especially people from all around the world. So wherever you're from, please get in touch.